Welcome to the Navigator podcast.
Welcome to the Navigate Academy. Our guest today is Chuck Wilson, Chief Executive Officer of NSCA, the National Systems Contractor Association. NSCA is the leading not-for-profit association representing the commercial electronic systems industry. As the Chief Executive Officer of NSCA, much of Chuck's time is spent assisting systems contractors and integrators with the challenges of today's business environment, leading strategic planning sessions, and keeping them and helping them make the best decisions possible based on the information provided and the prognosis of the future. So Chuck, thanks for participating in this podcast on decision making.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me, Brad.
You're very welcome. Again, I enjoy our conversation. So you facilitated and supported, I'll say many, and I could probably say hundreds, but many of your member companies through strategic planning, acquisitions, mergers, succession planning, all those conversations, to name a few. How important is really deciding and defining clear decision-making criteria when you hold these sessions?
Yeah, well, I think I've done over 200 of them now. I do about 2 a month,
Okay.
generally, and it's super important for companies to have these sessions, to think about what the next few years looks like. A lot of succession planning things going on, a lot of alignment, if you will, of the talent, and making sure they're in the right technology and stuff. So from a decision making standpoint, what we try to do is we try to get everybody to come into the room, I like doing them away from the business, if you will, to have a retreat kind of setting a little bit. And I try to do it in a way where there's no titles in that room. So everybody is just a participant, equal footing, all ideas are good ideas and stuff. So we try to make it such that there isn't that hierarchy of the typical day that people would have. And so that kind of lets people's guards down. And then before we even get there, we go through the exact same 7 questions we ask people in advance. And then we have an interview process that is done that kind of gives us an indication of the dynamic going into the room. If there's a real problem, or if there's tensions within the group or something like that. So we use the same format for everybody. So we really focus on just 4 things, really, what is the company's go-to-market strategy? What's their posture for the type of people they employ, the type of clients they serve, and then we help with the back office stuff too, the business resources and metrics and measurables, kind of the things that you're expert on.
Right. And so when you on those 4 kind of, I'll call them pillars or tenets, when you have disagreements amongst people, what do you see the primary causes? Is it because they were kind of mixed wavelengths, or different visions, or different perspectives?
It's a couple things. One, the big thing is, if it's a family business, it's always the same stuff. It's generational, it's ego, it's that concept where we have never done it that way. So the older generation wants to hang on to the past, the newer generation they see the change that could happen and they want to embrace that. So you've got this tug of war going between what worked in yesteryear, what's going to work in the future, that kind of stuff. But really, apart from the family thing, the ego and all that kind of stuff, it's really the growth posture of the company. Like, how quickly do we want to grow? Do we want to slow down growth? And then the thing that you and I talk a lot about is about half the room is focused on top line, revenue. The other half understands, the bottom line and the margins and all that. And
the stuff that keeps you in business, right?
Yeah. So you've got half the people chasing, and it's an ego thing. How many employees, how much revenue do we got? What you and I know is we should focus on profitability and doing the right thing, recurring revenue and all that kind of stuff. So it's just really getting people on the same page about what we're trying to accomplish as a company. And that's when you can disarm all the tensions. And there's always one person sitting in the room with their arms crossed, not wanting to be there. And we got to diffuse that right away. And we have some exercises that do that pretty well.
I would think if once you get in that kind of, we agree on the criteria and the playing field, then you probably have some great discussions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. You also, I mean, this year it was nice to attend 25th annual conference. So congratulations for BLC.
Yeah, it was very good considering we had an ice storm.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. I'm never going to go to Dallas in March again. So what were your, I mean, because your speakers get better every year, what's your primary decision criteria when thinking through the program and kind of who your speaker set is going to be?
Yeah, so we kind of unveiled our secret sauce on that this year, and it's something that has taken us 20 some years to perfect. But what happens is it's a sequential thing, and we get together. The NSCA board of directors gets together and does the same strategic planning process we go through with our members. So we talk about those same things, and we think about, what are the key elements to helping our members in this industry be better at what they do? What are the key things? Is it supply chain people, commoditization, whatever, leadership, talent shortage, whatever. So the NSCA board gets together and we mind map this entire vision of what NSCA can be doing to help the system integration community. And so during that day, what I'm sitting back doing is taking notes about we call them swim lanes. So what is the important elements that come out of strategic planning that we then want to share with our members? So we end up with the swim lanes. We start with the economy, Dr. Keel. Then we get into things like this year, the primary tenets were culture and, keeping company culture intact, innovation, inspiration. We always have an inspirational speaker like Dr. Calvin Mackey was. We look at innovation, we look at leadership, we look at living your core values, like the core values of the company. How can we then, make sure that frontline people understand them, that our clients appreciate them, all that. We look at growth strategies, and then we look at differentiation. So that was this year. So how do we battle commoditization? Well, we battle it through differentiation. So then we pick out these 7 swim lanes, and then across that, we overlay 8 different workshops on top of that. And in doing so, we then say to ourselves, who are the top 3 speakers in the world, experts in the world, to talk about those subjects? And so we start watching videos and we read a lot of books, as you know, and we go through all of this process of elimination and budgeting. And, with the way that it always works out is, sure enough, I picked the most expensive person that we can never afford to have in a million years. But we then look at how we can put it together with the budget that we have to get the very best speakers and the best experts on that particular topic, but not have them cross over into somebody else's swim lane either. That's the sauce. That's the secret to BLC. Is we've got to figure out what the industry needs first. Then we figure out how to divide that up into the content lanes. Then we go back and look at who are the best presenters for that particular topic.
Well, and I think if you do the order you do it in, then it really just becomes a selection process versus an argument or a drama process. It's just, guys, this just naturally fits.
It is. And how we learned a hard lesson on this like 20 years ago, when I would just read a great book and pick out a speaker, read a book, pick out a speaker from that. We had speakers that would come up and talk about, say, leadership, have a nice speech, and then the next one behind him would talk about leadership and contradict everything the one before him said. So we learned a lesson that we got to keep these people as specialists in a particular field and stay within that lane.
Awesome. Well, and so speaking of leadership, I mean, you had the Randy Vaughn, award winners, and so that next generation. How important do you feel it is to really grow that capability in the next generation to make decisions? I find in this environment, a lot of people just don't want to make decisions. They don't want to take that individual responsibility, but how do you grow when you don't?
Yeah, that's tough. And, we, out of the, the next generation, the Randy Vaughn program and stuff, we're giving birth to this new program called the Next Gen Boot Camp or Academy. And in that's where we address those issues. So we're going to have like a workshop kind of environment to help coach people, young people on, really their passion, where they fit in a company, what their role is, how to be assertive but also patient at times, how to how to be
Yep.
resilient, how to like if they had a great idea, or they loved some idea and it was presented and not well received, how to pick yourself up and keep going and doing all that. So we we have a lesson plan. We have it's a 3-day camp basically, where we can develop peer groups that will then do some role playing and scenario playing on things like one of the topics is, okay, I've been a peer and a coworker with these
Right.
people. Now I'm their manager, and how do I treat that different, going from peer to your friend to boss kind of thing.
Right.
So we
Exactly.
go through all these scenarios about, okay, here are the challenges of young people entering into a mature company and figuring out where they fit, using our career lattice model to, understand, where your passion really lies and what are the
Right.
things that you got to do to excel within that particular role and the responsibilities with that.
So you grow, and I mean, I know you just always groomed leadership, and that's always been a passion. What do you say to the owners in this journey? Because like you said earlier, ego, a little bit of like, I'm in charge. What counsel do you give them as they start to grow this next generation?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, like, and a good example of that is we have a lot of companies that are looking at replacing people that are getting into that retirement mode.
Right.
Like we have one company that it's time for their CFO to retire. How do I find a CFO like him? My point is, let's not
Let's not
clone
do that.
that person. Let's try to discover what we really need from the CFO of the future, not one that's been with the company 30 years ago. So what we try to do with all of this is to coach the company leaders that whenever they bring a young person into a leadership role or a management role, is to make sure that they're empowering them and not undermining them. And that's so hard to get across to people that have been doing things the same way for so long. And
Right.
that's
Because
what,
we don't want to clone that 30-year paradigm.
no, no. And I think the other thing that I see is somewhat of a disrespect for the younger generation. Is I think a lot of times we look at the young people because they have a different work life balance, than maybe our generation does. But when we look at young people coming into the industry, we've got to realize that some of these young people are very well educated. They're super smart. They're intelligent people. They just don't have the experience in our particular field. We've got to let them bring what they know into our
Exactly.
industry as well. And it could be great, because maybe it's something we haven't considered before. So I think, having respect for the next generation coming in and to give them the tools they need to be successful, and not so much lecture them on how to behave and how to do this and how to do that, but it's like get their ideas out of them, get them on the table and let them explain them, and not cut them off, if you will,
Right.
with what we think we know.
Exactly. Well, thank you. Again, you talked about reading quite a bit, and I continue to read. What's been a memorable book you've read in the last couple of months or in process of reading? Again, we've got our book club. We always like to share.
Oh yeah. Well, so this is my new one right now, which is called Indistractable. And what
Okay.
it's about is focus. We have so many distractions with social media and our phones, and we're attached to all our devices and everything like that. This is a super interesting book about the behavioral patterns of people who have distractions, and how a poor company culture can actually lead to an environment where distractions are taking people away from accomplishing what they're setting out to do.
Got it.
But what got me really interested in this book is in the later chapters, it talks about the comparison between our addiction to our mobile device and social media. Like one example is the correlation between like a group of folks outside, getting ready to smoke cigarettes. the first person that lights up gives permission to everybody else to light up a cigarette as well.
Okay.
They're saying in this book that the first person to pick up their phone and look at their email or look at their text message at like a social gathering, like a dinner, that's permission for everybody else to do that.
Right.
And they talks about the statistics behind that, how often that happens and everything. And it's just fascinating to.
Yeah, that was, yeah. So the lemming approach, or that, you know, there went the social because we all went on our media. So we stopped the conversation. Awesome. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So the idea there, Brad, is that like you go out to a business dinner at night, right? Or any social dinner, everybody's got their cell phone in their pocket, and they all have smartphones, right? And they're all buzzing and beeping, and you can feel them vibrating and all that. The temptation to be that first person, you know, who's going to be the first person to pull that phone out, and then the chain reaction that causes creates the whole dinner becomes then diluted by the distraction of the social influence on that. So anyway, I just
check your phones at the door.
Yeah, and I thought about you, and my buddy Ray got me reading that book, the Checklist Manifesto.
Yes, I love that book.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that might be that might be something we have to kind of bring into BLC, I think, too, because with all the distractions going on, you know, Ray's a pilot and stuff, and that was an Air Force thing, right? Where
very much so.
It was developed through the Air Force. So the idea would be is that no matter how many times you do things, I'm thinking like project closeouts and all that stuff.
You use a checklist. That's why it's there.
Wouldn't that be cool? Is that we it develops kind of like a system integrator checklist manifesto where we parallel that between the distractions of maybe managing multiple projects and doing this one project right, so that you don't get them mixed up.
Absolutely. Well, again, busyness versus progress and performance.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought about you. And
no, absolutely. Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Chuck. And again, I'd love to speak and just continue to do what you do. And we'll see you next year at BLC.
Yes, and thanks for all you guys are doing. You've been so helpful with our members. We really appreciate that.
You bet. Thanks.
All right. Take care.